Boom. Pablo, how are you?
So Tony, it's nice to see you again. Nice to talk to you.
It's been a few years.
Yes. We spent some time together in Latin America. We met in CrossFit Summit a couple of times. So yeah, it's been a few years.
Yes. What have you been up to? Well, first of all, I have very different guests on here. It's the No Fear podcast. And the reason I invited you on here is a little bit, are you commuting or you're mostly in the US now?
I moved back to the United States a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lived in Argentina for years and moved back to Argentina 8 years ago. I spent 7 years over there and I came back last March. So it's been a year.
Okay, cool. So you're, just so people who don't know who you are, and just to put it in context of the No Fear podcast, I try to obviously bring diverse guests on, and I don't necessarily need the conversation to be overtly about fear and fear management and stuff, but you come from a region that has a lot of violence and a lot of danger to locals and travelers. But more specifically, what I wanted to talk about, because I think it was fascinating, you went through my course, and just for people who don't know, Pablo works for CrossFit, and I don't know if you're involved in other stuff, but you're mostly traveling, with the team, educating people in the CrossFit methodology around the world, correct?
Exactly. So I'm part of the staff trainers that teaches level 1s and level 2s all over the world. Yes.
Nice. Very cool. So I want, and this is for a little bit selfish on my part, but also I want it to always be educational for anybody listening to this. But why don't you, if you recall, some of the conversation, you did the course because you're a very physical person. You're an athlete. You had done martial arts prior.
Yes.
How long was your martial art background prior to meeting me?
Well, I started martial arts when I was 6 years old.
Okay. So a long time. Yeah.
I did martial arts for 30 years. I started with Okinawa and karate.
Yep.
I'm really lucky in my life to have the best teachers in the world in the martial art that I was practicing. So I lived in Japan for a little bit.
Nice.
Hawaii for a little bit, teaching martial arts in Hawaii, and living in Zen Temple for a little bit as well. So my experience prior to meeting you was huge in martial arts. Yes.
Nice. And so, when, we've gone through, a lot of people may or may not know this, I've been involved with CrossFit since 2006. And there was a symbiotic connection between Coach Glassman's philosophy of movements that are elemental and fundamental to your survival, so that you're prepared for the unknown and the unknowable. That could have been describing my approach to personal defense and safety, in a more slightly verbose, less elegant way, because that's part of the magic of Greg. His ability to his phrasing is amazing. He's like a musician, when he writes and speaks. But what I would tell people is, hey, careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing, and that your favorite move might trigger your opponent's best counter. And that's a problem for you because the counter fighter is more dangerous. And also that you can't possibly know today where you're going to be attacked. And so you can't specialize. I would always say for years, if you specialized in kicking or grappling or striking or knife or gun, and a confrontation happened outside of your area of expertise, that might create an emotional, psychological ripple effect that, in conjunction with the startle flinch. I don't understand why people do that. Sorry for the interruption, everybody. I forgot to shut my phone off. So there's the whole thing. So when I first in 2006 heard Greg talking, I was like, holy shit, like this is what what the path that I've been on studying for self-defense is eerily similar to the path and explanation of, constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity, but movements that are elemental and fundamental to survival. And I digress a little bit here, but I wanted to frame this because over in 2006 and 7, we started doing stuff for CrossFit, showing our Saving Private Ryan drill. The ATM video came out in 2007, all this stuff. So the community got exposed to our way of thinking, which really resonated. We started doing seminars, and we started off doing a Be Your Own Bodyguard course. And then we got asked to construct something very specific for CrossFit. And it went through 3 different name changes as we were trying to find the best name that would resonate with people. And I think when I came to Argentina, I forget where we did it, but was it CrossFit Defense or CrossFit Spear at the time?
CrossFit Defense.
Yeah. But basically all of it was my Spear system. We were just trying to find the right package, the name of it. But you came in initially, and this is where I'm getting to the reason I asked you on the call wasn't to tell everybody that you thought the Spear was great and blah, blah, blah. To me, the Spear, the mechanics, the physiology around the Spear is far less important than the depth and understanding that we get, understanding the relationship between psychology, fear, and performance. And that was the connection, because you came there kind of as a level 1 trainer, busy, you had a box, but I think originally you came there as a martial artist and a CrossFitter.
Exactly.
And then something special happened in Argentina.
Yeah, it was amazing. Your course back in time, I think, was in 2013, beginning of 2013. It opens my mind. I mean, after so many years of experience in martial arts, of practicing technique and be established in one kind of technique and one size fit at all. After going to our course, it's like, man, this is exactly what I experienced when I start practicing CrossFit, coming from the traditional gym, right? Always doing the same mechanic, the same technique, and all of a sudden, this constant, very functional movements executed at high intensity. Same exactly example I felt throughout your course, where, okay, what about before the fight? What about before the confrontation? What about be your own bodyguard? And when the shit goes on, why it went on, and what you got to do about it? But what it called my attention in your course was the psychology, the prior before the shit went down.
Right.
Like the circle of fear that you explained to everybody. But the circle of fear, not just for somebody who's getting to confrontation, for somebody who gets in front of the bar, somebody who gets in front, or 3, 2, 1, go, that fear that we feel before we start moving. And that hit me so hard that my perspective in martial arts, my job, what I was going through at that time in my life, everything just have a different angle.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, because I remember, us going out for a bite after one night. I think we went out to dinner for coffee or probably several types of meat, and we started talking about fear, and you were. And that's why I wanted to share that story, because a lot of people, especially as you get older, you have fewer and fewer physical confrontations. It's not like when you're 13, 14, 15, you're pushing around the schoolyard, maybe a fight on the way to school, but as you get older, you get a family, you get business, you try to avoid confrontations as much as you can for most people. And it was an interesting, for me, to have somebody, 30 years martial arts, CrossFit coach, business owner, have that impact on you in such a way. But you were also, we talked specifically, and hopefully you're comfortable, because I'm going to force you to bring it up here. You were very inside the fear loop, apprehensive about some evaluations that were coming up that were a pivotal point in your career, how far you could go.
Exactly. So yeah, at that point in my life, I was trying to become a level 1 trainer, and it was a lot of doubts in my mind if I could do this job. So that was the fear process in my head, and what was freezing me able to expose all my potential. Uh, See it before the course. So by knowing what was my limits, by knowing how can I overcome my limits throughout your course is what helped me eventually after 2 weekends of your seminar.
Right.
I was a level 1 trainer. So the fear was there, the insecurity was there. And it's the same fear that we can feel in any other kind of aspect in life. And for me, that was a big freezing moment every time that I have to think about that evaluation that was coming up.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, people who are outside CrossFit, but even like level 1 can be confused. There's level 1 is that, the weekend seminar, you get a level 1, but what Pablo is referring to is getting on the level 1 training staff, the headquarters, the HQ team that travels around the world delivering the level 1 seminar. And so he was having you call it what you want, stage fright, like how am I going to do when I'm tested? Do you think it was public speaking, fear of movement? Was there some specific fear that you had? Was it just like passing, failing, my identity? If I fail, what am I going to do? Or was it all of the above?
It was a little bit all of above, especially, I'm coming from South America, was born and raised in Argentina. English is my second language. And always being in front of professionals, flow masters, or supervisors from CrossFit level 1 staff, and being evaluated in the methodology of CrossFit, and also the ability to express the methodology to others and express yourself. Being in the CrossFit level 1 staff, it's not just about the movement. It's not just about showing up and down, squat, knees out. That's just minimum compared to everything else that is going on in that group of trainers that teaches level 1s and level 2s in the world. So it was a lot of things in my back at that time. Insecurities. Okay, can I do this? Do I have the potential to do this? Do I have the ability, the right age? Is my prime time over? So all those things was freezing me up.
Right.
To express myself in the way and be myself when I have to be myself, and it was time to shine.
So what's amazing, and I want everyone listening to understand this, because it's one of my, my conscious bias in life is making people safe. That's what I live to do. That's what I think about all the time. I've been studying violence. As part of that journey, I recognize that it didn't matter whether you were jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, Thai boxing, Okinawan karate, or no training whatsoever, that your ability to stand up for yourself and move towards the threat, whether it's public speaking or self-defense or asking somebody to marry you or starting your own business, was always going to run through your relationship with fear.
Exactly.
And so, there are some people, they get that adrenaline dump and they go, here we go, my body's getting ready for action. They use it for fuel and they know how to realign it. And other people, if they're not educated in a balance of compassion and logic, where we can kind of massage and integrate the two. So hey, you can still be an artist and recognize your fear and still go sing or punch or teach CrossFit or whatever you're doing. And that was the whole thing. So I would tell people, hey, the ability to protect yourself is inarguably the single most important skill you could have, because you could be as successful as you want, but if I say, look, I'm taking your guitar collection away, I'm taking your car collection away, I'm taking your stamp collection away, oh, I'm taking your kids, I'm taking your wife, I'm taking your house, I'm taking your husband. If you're not an insane person and you're not being a dick listening to this very embellished and exaggerated example, you would trade all your material possessions and your loved ones for the ability to live another day.
Exactly.
And so I'm not trying to be like super deep here. It's very simple. If if I said, hey, I'm taking away your company and everything you built for the last 10 years. And you're like, no, it's all my security, all my money. And I go, or you can keep that, but the alternative is you keep it, but your family gets to live, or you get to live. And like when we put those like on that scale of which one I'm going to pick, the answer, if you're not insane or just trying to be a contrarian, is yeah. Because if you didn't steal your success, and this is kind of deep, if you didn't steal your success, then you could earn it back, right?
Yeah.
So you get an injury, you rebuild yourself. You gain some weight, you can lose some weight. So if you didn't steal the intellectual property of somebody else's company, if you didn't steal that business, if you didn't steal this, kidnap your wife, and you'll figure it out. And
you regain it.
Say it again. You cut out.
That you didn't steal it. You know that you have the potential if you lose it to regain it. If you did not,
because you know what it takes to build it, and you might even get it back faster because you understand what goes into it. But my point here is that when you understand, so what I do is I teach how to look at fear through self-defense, because if we put this together philosophically, I can't think of anything more scary than having to protect yourself or a loved one. Exactly. And because the outcome is so critical, whereas it can be really scary, whether you're going to get whether the offer on the house is going to go through. You can be really scary whether you're going to make this lift or not. It can be really scary whether your proposal is accepted or the bank accepts your credit application or whatever. But all of that shit is survivable. If someone says no, and you just got to deal with the rejection. Mm-hmm. But navigating real violence is different. And so, and I'm going to circle back to what I'm really getting at here, but it's just, I'm so passionate about this shit, is I could just be doing seminars on understanding fear, and I do. But my passion is I go, listen, nobody wants to be the victim of violence. And in the moment that violence is happening, and violence doesn't care what martial art you study, and violence doesn't care if you're a liberal or a Republican, violence doesn't care if you're male or female, it just fucking happens. Yeah. In that moment, if I could freeze everything going on, in that moment when everyone's flinching and screaming and it just pauses, and I go, hey, if you push this button, you're out of here. Right? Like, how many people are like lunging for that button? And the button here is being proactive. The button here is you don't put your seatbelt on while you're flying through the fucking window in a car accident.
Exactly.
You're too late. So this is about going, and I tell people, don't be cavalier about violence. When we're teaching fighting, we're actually teaching people to not fight. Yeah. We're teaching them. I mean, you studied for 30 years martial arts. In my class, on day one, in the first half of the class, we talk about situational awareness, avoidance strategies, choice speech, how to de-escalate, and how to manage your fear. In your 30 years of martial arts, how much time is allotted to that in other courses? Zero, right? It's crazy.
Believe me, I have the best Japanese coaches and masters in the world. But everything is upon, I do this, you do that. And life doesn't work in that way.
Right. And everyone starts in the headlock or in the lapel grab or whatever. And you can get amazing skills. And here's the thing is, like, just while we're on the subject, I'm not saying to people, don't practice that stuff. I'm saying you need to learn about the pre-contact cues. You need to understand pre-fight. Almost like, remember, was it Minority Report with Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
They had pre-crime. Like, yes. If you understood before it was happening, if we applied that same logic and philosophy to our personal safety, there'd be far less victims of violence. It's like, because a lot of I've been studying violence for decades now, and victims of violence very often say two things. He came out of nowhere. And they also say, but I also knew something was wrong before the attack.
So they knew. It was a gut feeling already.
Yeah. So their intuition, their personal radar said, there's something creepy in the garage here. There's something weird about my date, or there's something bizarre about this employee walking towards me. So people who and now it's very much part of our the structure of our Be Your Own Bodyguard course is we talk about victims of violence and what we can learn and how it can make you safer just by internalizing this, by embracing this. That every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. That's 100%. And so we tell people, hey, if you get a bad feeling, choose safety. But it's an interesting thing. And, when I put you on the spot, I go, how much in your 30 years of martial arts did you spend discussing the psychology of the attack, the physiology of the attack, the de-escalation, the pre-contact, the situational awareness as it relates to self-awareness? And you said zero. It's when I say that, guys, and everyone listening to this, I'm not putting down any martial art.
Oh, hell no. Not about it.
What I'm talking about is just making you safer by understanding the elements where, you're going camping and you pick this style tent and I go, hey, that area gets really bad rainfall. You got to make sure that you're elevated here. And you're like, you hate me because you think I'm like criticizing your tent. And I'm just saying, hey, be careful because the weather here might compromise your safety. The weather being the bad guy, right? So all of that is this marriage between the psychology of fear and understanding it and self-defense kind of crystallize everything, because I grew up as an athlete sabotaging all my success. I was no different when we sat and talked about, your upcoming evaluation for the team. And you shared honestly how nervous you are and apprehensive with it. And we identified, well, you're clearly in the fear loop. One of the things that struck me, and it hits me with everybody who talks about it, is I see myself in you and everybody else, where when I grew up, I felt like I had so much fear, but I didn't have anyone to talk about it. So whether I was a competitive skier, gymnast, wrestler, I was like, my whole thinking was, if I'm so good, why am I so scared? There's something incongruous there. And so if someone invites you to try out for a level 1 team, and I shared this in a recent podcast, Dan Millman, the guy who wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, he said, if you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you are outnumbered. Right? So someone says, Pablo, I want you to come and audition for this and be prepared for this. Well, that's the confrontation. And now you are going, am I worthy?
Exactly.
Do I believe in myself? I think I'm too old. I don't think I move well. I don't have the knowledge. English isn't my primary language. And all you're thinking about is these negative things. This becomes this emotional weight on you. And suddenly, you're moving slow and you're overthinking everything. And you're what we refer to as the fear loop.
Yes.
So for everyone listening to this, Pablo comes to this self-defense seminar as a martial artist and helping me translate and stuff like this, and discovers a mindset that's preventing him from self-actualization, from experiencing the best version of himself, because through whatever circumstances in life, and we all have it, even though you're very upbeat personality and positive person, for yourself, you didn't know how to coach yourself.
Exactly.
It's pretty heavy shit. And I get this over and over again where I tell people like, hey, come to the BYOB for a day. Like, it will change how you lift. I guarantee that you'll PR any hero WOD after the course, and they're like, people think I'm crazy. And they're going, I don't really need self-defense. And I go, it's not a self-defense course. We're using self-defense because we're giving you two skill sets at the same time. You can't protect yourself or your family if you're scared shitless, right? It's just that's going to make that a bigger problem. And some people, if they get so scared, they're immobilized by the fear, right? That's that freeze response.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that it'll teach you is how to look at fear, how to manage fear, whether it's a lift, whether it's a Dave Castro WOD, or whether it's a business opportunity like, hey, come try out for this, and you end up sabotaging your audition because you don't believe in yourself. You don't give yourself permission to win. Do you remember specifically any of the, because I mean it was many years ago, anything that from the cycle of behavior that really flipped the switch? And I'll give you an example. Is Kevin Ogar invited me a couple of years ago to Denver to go teach a course, and you remember in the No Fear lecture we talk about the psychology of intimidation.
Yeah.
And the actual slide is when you are visualizing what your opponent can do to you instead of what you must do to your opponent. That's the psychology of intimidation. And Kevin, the next day after the seminar, got on the bench. And for people who don't know, Kevin's a good friend of both of ours. And Kevin was unfortunately severely injured in a lifting event where the weights on a too small platform hit some plates, bounced back into his spine, and paralyzed him from the waist down. And his strongest lift, and he's a very strong athlete and more mentally strong than both Pablo and I put together, just to come back for that. You know, he runs a successful box. He's also on, he's developing programs for adaptive athletes, still working out. You know, I struggle with pull-ups. He's trying to do them with his wheelchair. And I'm like, oh God, I'm a pussy, right? The guy's an animal. But he calls me the next day, and bench press, because of his situation, is his strongest lift. And he calls me up and he goes, I just PR'd by 20 pounds. And I was like, holy shit, because when you're that good and that strong, PRs are fractional weights. And they're not 20 pounds, as you know. Yeah. And he said to me very, very calmly and very matter-of-factly, I realized that, and guys, I'll restate, this is just one of the slides in our presentation on fear. And it's, of course, related to self-defense. When I'm visualizing what my opponent can do to me instead of what I must do to my opponent. So picture, you're getting in your car and someone comes up to you and they grab you by the throat and they say, you better cooperate with me or I'm going to, put my hand through your face. And you're visualizing that, and suddenly like you're a deer in the headlights. Instead of reversing that and going, okay, what's closest weapon, closest target? Okay, I'm going to hit him in the throat. I'm going to grab him in the nuts here. I'm going to bite him here. If you don't start seeing him as a target and you just see yourself as a target, you're not going to fucking move. You're just now a human punching bag. So Kevin calls me and says, what I realized is I was thinking about what the weight could do to me instead of what I must do to the weight. And I visualized that slide of intimidation, and I substituted opponent for bar. And I pushed, and it was a 20-pound PR that I had been visualizing what the bar could do to me instead of what I must do to the bar. And I got goosebumps right now retelling that story, because that's how profound, when we ask people, what is the weight of fear? In CrossFit, it's 20 pounds. For you, had we not met, maybe you're not on the team.
Exactly.
And I need, let me preface that, like, I'm not a dick. I'm not taking credit for your success. I didn't do shit, right? You could have, what I'm giving you is a way to understand how to manage fear, how to look at fear. You could have been afraid to look at fear.
Yeah. And
right?
That's what I was afraid to look at fear. I was frozen by the idea of what it could happen to me.
Right.
Instead of embrace the fear and know that he's there, but I have to overcome it. It's exactly what I felt, and I get goosebumps too, because whatever Kevin told you is exactly what we talk about, is how I felt about getting the job or making a decision at that time. It's exactly the same. It's the management. I couldn't manage the fear. I was frozen. I was stopped. I was tapped out by the fear.
Right. Was there, do you remember, again, it was a few years ago, but do you remember anything in the cycle of behavior, a particular quote or a acronym or was there one thing that we discussed where you went, oh my God, I get it now, or I got to do it? Or was it a slow burn and you just finally?
It was the whole process, but understanding that it was a fear problem, understanding that it was an obstacle, and understanding that the obstacle is not going to get out of my way, that I have to put it out of the way myself. I have to go over the bump.
Right.
Is that how the whole slide came all together with me? I know that it's a mountain over there. I have two options. Just look at the mountain, so it's got to climb it and go over die.
Right.
And that was the fear at that time that I felt for so many years and a lot of decisions in my life, right? But at that time is what was embraced in my heart, that it was so bottled in that I could not go over that stuff. That's exactly, it was there and I have to deal with it. And translate actually how my few years after that in Argentina I lived, because coming from the United States, where it's a place that, I mean, at least you go to South America a lot. So United States is one of the safest places in the world that I live. I live in Europe, I live in South America, I live in Asia. And when I went back to Argentina, violence, like you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, violence is something that we live day to day. I mean, you might go to work, you come back, you might be dead because you didn't give up your iPhone, right? Somebody, give me your iPhone. No, I don't, and they kill you. So
crazy.
Knowing that, you have two options: never get out of the house, which was one of my options for a little bit. Man, I don't want to get out of my house. Or start taking precautions and how to deal with it. What can I do to be my own bodyguard?
Right.
Protect myself for things that happen. Be aware of the situations. It's like, I know the fear is there. I know the danger is there. Well, what can I do to protect myself and my family from getting to my house and getting jumped in the door of my house because somebody want to get into my house or steal whatever, my car? So understanding that it was a dangerous situation to live in Argentina, live in South America, I learned how to process all the danger and process the fear to make it my regular life and deal with it on a regular basis.
It's crazy when I hear those stories and you share that. Then I see, this is of course an audio, but we're on video. I can see Pablo and I can see his body language in his face as he's visualizing. Where it's heavy stuff. We take it for granted. And you made me think about something else there, Pablo, was, when people in North America and even all over the world, the stigma, the thing that I try to break through is learning self-defense is not the same as learning martial arts and not the same as learning combat sports. And that true self-defense is about understanding how to avoid situations. I said it earlier that, people go, I want to learn how to fight. And I go, well, don't come to our course because we're going to teach you how to not fight. We're going to teach you how to avoid it. And it's a hard thing because we get in, like, my research after I've been teaching now almost 40 years, my research is just like lumped into a bowl of, like all martial arts, all self-defense, and they're all the same. People look at it and they're different. And in trying to articulate the difference, you push buttons in people. And it's, we've had in our courses, military, law enforcement, firefighters, MMA fighters, black belts, the soccer moms, the rape victims, because at a certain point when somebody develops enough self-awareness, they realize, I'm not going to be less safe by being more educated. I'm actually going to be safer. And so they make that investment. You track it on, like, it's not a panacea. It's not like they're coming to the course and I'm teaching them some magic trick.
Yeah, exactly.
And my favorite part of this, and that's why, I wanted to get you on the call, because, we've got a number of people in some shows coming up where people used like, I don't know if you heard the new series we started, No One Special, where my first interview with Jen Peck, she met me at a CrossFit event, did I think it was a 4-hour Be Your Own Bodyguard event, and used the whole ATMD value strategy late at night one night, and messaged me going, like, I was about to either get mugged, raped, carjacked, like who knows where that would have gone. But I diffused it using this simple strategy, and that's what this is about. It's about a system to mitigate real life stimuli, right? Exactly. How do I handle this fear? And it could be, like, you could get a call tomorrow that so-and-so's flight was canceled or they're sick. You got to get on here and you're asked to do a presentation at a certain level to a certain audience that you've never done. And guess what? You could like slip back into that, holy shit, am I ready for this challenge? And I tell this here, that, I'm very comfortable with public speaking. I've been doing it for decades. But there were events along the way where what was supposed to be 50 people turned out to be 500, and live TV and different timelines where I looked at a curtain and just saw TVs and someone's putting an earpiece on me. And by the way, this is live, right? So don't swear. And I'm like, holy, and all of a sudden my heart starts to pound and I'm sweating and I'm calling my wife, Jessie, going, holy fuck, there's 500 people here. I'm going on live. Like I have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm freaking out. I'm drawing a blank. And she goes, you once a year you call me like that and you tell me you don't know what you're going to say. And then you call me after and go, that was your best talk. I hope they recorded it. Meaning, every one of us, even somebody like me who studies fear, we get stage fright. We start we overthink. How are we going to do? We get performance anxiety. Mike Tyson used to throw up before his fights. Sir Laurence Olivier, one of the greatest actors ever, used to throw up before his performances. And we deal with it in different ways. So I want people to understand that, what we're sharing, what we're talking about is a psychological system on how to look at your fear and make it work for you by disabling its power over you, right?
Exactly.
Because if you understand it cerebrally, if you understand the psychodynamics, the neural circuitry of it, you disempower it because now you look at it like a circuit board, right? You look at it like, oh, if I cut the wire here, I'm good, right? So we don't want doubt to create a hesitation, and unchecked doubt and hesitation produces, mild anxiety, and suddenly you're not breathing right. And we all know all the research, with breathing. If your breathing is erratic, it's going to change, blood flow to the brain, and now you're not thinking. The next time you're in some fucking spiral where you're, on the verge of like a full blown panic attack, often over nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
ready for and you don't even know it.
Right. Have you had I interviewed Kevin recently and it was a real fun interview, and he told me like he uses psychobehavior all the time to coach his athletes, like elements of it, right? Have you had the opportunity to integrate it either as a dad, as a coach?
Yeah. Especially with my stepson in Argentina.
Okay.
Because my stepson he's going to be 15 next month, in May, I'm sorry. And same thing, he grew up that's very different than mine. When I was a young kid in Argentina, man, we used to play on the streets, no danger. I mean, from early morning to late at night, nobody will steal, no iPhones, no nothing. I mean, I'm a 47 years old man. So back in time, we didn't have anything to show off. Nowadays, my stepson is afraid to get out of the street to play soccer in the street.
Wow.
It's dangerous because they kidnap you and they call, hey, if you don't give me $5,000, we kill your son. So going for the last years with him, his name is Dante, going for a few years with him, and look, the danger is going to be there. It's all how you challenge it, how you are aware of the situation. If you see three guys coming to you on the street, what you got to do? You're going to challenge them. You're going to run away. You're going to cross the street. You might act crazy. I show him the ATM machine video that he made, and say, wow, that is amazing. That he could,
nice.
How you diffuse danger by doing that, right? If you come into the house, if you drive into the house in the future when you have a car, you look a couple blocks away. If you have somebody that is eating you, because home invasions happening that way. They wait for you when you park in the car. When you get into your when people just get into your house. So be aware of that situation. So as a dad, as a stepdad, I'm able to do that with my stepson in Argentina. With my kids, when I bring them to Argentina, hey, look, over here for your iPhone, they get a lot of money. So put it in your pocket. Don't call the attention. If you speak English in public places, talk to me, that's it, and keep it quiet, because speaking English means that you are a tourist.
Right.
Means that if I kidnap you, it's a lot of money out of you. So creating that sense, oh, Dad, is that real? That happened over here? They will kidnap me? I'm nobody. Say, well, I know that we, for them, we are people that we might be rich, which we are not.
Right.
But how to create awareness from somebody from the United States in Argentina. And I see this with tourists all the time. Tourists in Argentina from the United States, from Europe, they get robbed, they get hurt because they don't have that awareness. Man, this is a different culture. They might kill me for a ring that it is worth just $10 in Walmart, but they don't know that, right? So they go to the street with the gold chain, the gold watch. They go to the street with a wallet full of credit cards and money. And being aware of the situation where you are, like in South America, anywhere in South America. And I love Brazil, I love Argentina, I love Chile, I love Colombia, but you have to be careful. So lucky for me, I'm able to apply those principles that I learned of the fear management, how to deal with it, how to prepare yourself in case something happened to you or not to happen. You have the control most of the time for the shit that's gonna go on with you.
Crazy. That's great, man. It's so good that, I'm a little, I don't have anything to say because I'm just imagining, like, as a dad having to have those conversations. It's crazy. It's no different than, like, there was another active shooter this morning that was stopped by a school resource officer, the shit that happened in Florida, and having to, like, I came home and my daughter was in the kitchen with Jesse, and, I walked up to her. I said, "Hey, are you okay?" Because what happened at her school, there was a malfunction on the fire alarm system, so it went off today. And of course, that was the trigger for the Miami tragedy. Is the kid pulled the fire alarm, so everyone was like, moving in a group, and they had already heard about the shooting. And then they hear the fire alarm going off, and she just fucking freaked, right? And, I come home and I go, I heard you had an interesting day at school today. And she's like, "Yeah, Dad." And I was like, just looking at her, I said, "You okay? Do you want to talk?" She says, "Yeah, I'm okay." I said, she says, she goes, "It's fine." I go, "No, it's not fucking fine. It's not fine that you had to experience that and that you have to think about those things." I gave her a hug, and you're speechless because you're, like, even with what I do, after Sandy Hook, I went to the school that she was going to and offered my services for free. I said, "I don't want any money. Let me train you guys. It's an open campus. Like, they weren't even fucking interested. It's got to go to the school board. The school board's got to approve it, then the state, and then the region. And, like, it's so ridiculous. It's infuriating as a parent. And I just empathize. I was just like visualizing, like, you having to have those talks with your stepson and your kids, hey, it blows my mind. I'm stupefied. I don't have a solution. Nobody has a solution. But anyways, dude, it was so good to catch up. It's been many, many years.
Yes. Yes. See you soon, and that would be great. That would be great to see you again.
Yeah, our paths will connect soon between our travels. There'll be something. It'll probably be walking through an airport. Pablo, yes. Tony, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot in the community. So it's kind of funny. What's next for you? How often are you on the road?
Well, every weekend I'm in the road. So I'm lucky enough to be part of this team that we can spread the word of Coach Glassman every week somewhere in the world, somewhere in the United States. I'm so honored to be part of the best team in the world, the best team. To talk about awareness, if you talk about caring about people, how to be ready for any kind of situation, this job and this methodology that the level 1, level 2 staff have, the CrossFit HQ have, is probably the best developing team in the world. I've been part of companies before CrossFit, and this one is something that it really blows my mind. I'm so honored to be able to be a small part of it.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny. I mean, there's so much controversy, of course, around CrossFit, and my company's not nearly the same size of it, but it's the same thing where like I've known Coach Glassman over a decade, and I know, you know, about his passion and his insights, and you know, I feel like in the same way that people, CrossFit, right? And they don't realize, you know, like go to an event and experience how singularly focused these coaches are in imparting information about nutrition, about programming, about movement, about you know, a very healthy lifestyle, and they really care. And it is, and I know
it's about empowering people that goes to the seminars, because it's not about us. It's about the participants, because they are the real heroes. They are the ones who get up 5 o'clock in the morning and they got a coach,
right,
Mr. John Smith and Mr. Sarah Miller,
right,
and how to move up and down.
Right.
So, you know, CrossFit allow us to empower those real heroes, the one that actually change people's life in the affiliate level, and to be part of that's incredible.
Yeah. It's cool, man. Okay, dude, I'm gonna let you go. And it was great catching up. Thank you for sharing your story. And are you? I'm trying to think of. You know, normally I've got the sign off like, how do people learn more about you and everything? But you're, you know, you're not. You don't got a big website where you're, you know, doing stuff. You're doing your own thing. You're you know, being a dad and a coach and being part of that crew. So keep me posted on stuff. We'll catch you at a course. Keep doing the great work, and you know, if anything ever comes up, even you know with your family, with coaching that relates to something where I can help at, you know, you got my number. You know how to reach me, buddy.
Thank you, Tony. It's an honor to see you again, and thank you for everything you did for me, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Be safe.
Have a great day.
You too.